Welcome everyone, Suzanne from Susie Q Crafts. Today I'm doing a tutorial for Dr. Digi of Dr. Digi's Stamps. This is one of the boards I like to use. I buy them in WH Smith's. This is the smaller one. I do most of my colouring in the evenings in front of the TV, and it's magnetic, so I attach my pictures to here. I also have a larger one which is just under an A4, I believe, but they're quite reasonable. Today I don't need that because I'm out in the log cabin doing some filming for my first Copic tutorial. The image is printed on blended cardstock, and I haven't done any winter tutorials, so I'm really sorry about the light reflection in my glass mat. I didn't think of that. I'm starting with E11, E21, E00 and E000. These are my favourite tones for colouring flesh, and I always lay down my darkest to my lightest, putting in my shadows and then going back over to darken my shadows if I feel I need to. So I'm going to go around the edge of the nose and I take tiny flicks. You can zoom in on the image. I'll open it in widescreen for a closer view. And I go from dark to light. So I go over the area I have just coloured. And it's all about Copic Colouring. It's all about moving your ink around, using the next pen to move the ink, blending it together. There's a lot of pressure actually used on the Copic cardstock, and I actually flick the colour into another. So I'm flicking my dark colours into my lighter area. You will get a few moments where I speed it up for you so you don't get completely bored by my colouring, and also for zooming in as well so you can have a really good close-up view of what I'm doing. So I'm just speeding up now to colour in the hands, and I take the darkest colour around the cuffs, where the cuff's going to come, and in between the fingers where my shadows might be. I'm now moving on to the beard moustache area, which covers actually most of his face. The only flesh you can see on his face is his nose. And I'm taking C3 as my darkest, C1, C0 and C00. As you can see, I've put the colours down in the bottom right hand corner of the screen for you. Now I'm treating the beard area like I would hair. So I want gaps in between the strands, so they're not completely up against one and each other, and I flick from the top to the middle and from the bottom up to the middle. And I'm going around the moustache area as well, and his sideburns or side beard, whatever you wish. When we colour something white, it's good to use our cool grey tones or some of our really pale blue tones. I would use my blue ones for if I was colouring something like water or glass. And then if I want white like snow or hair, as in this particular project, we're using the cool tones. Keeping them really light. So our darkest being 3, which isn't actually too dark. I would use this also on a nappy or white socks, white t-shirt, something like that. So I'm going to leave it with you now so you can watch the colouring process, and I'll be back in a minute. The speeded up version, if only we could colour this fast, I'd have so many more projects already done in my stash box, which would be quite nice. So I'm filling in with my lighter colours on this beard area. and all the time I always flick from bottom up and then from top down. Dr. Digi images are great for beginners and intermediate to advanced. There's lots of detail in the images, and we can kindly thank our artists for all that. It gives us as Copic colorists a lot of help when there's detail lines in an image. I'm going to zoom in for you now so you can have a closer look of how I'm colouring this up. And I've just noticed I've got a little bit of pen damage. This pen is the C3 and it needs a new nib. It is really important to look after your Copic pens, clean your lids thoroughly every so often, and also change the nibs as well. I'm using Chow and sketch markers. I don't have a preference over them, either of the two. It's just an expense thing. The Chow markers are a lot cheaper, but there's a wider colour range in the sketch markers, so I fill in with my sketch markers. I wish I could afford the whole set of sketch markers. That would be really lovely, but unfortunately not. I'm also taking my grey markers along the edges of the book pages. So I'm just working again from the inside out and from the outside in, just to define the different leaves of the pages in the book. So this is what we have so far. We've got the flesh tones and we've got our grey. We're now going to be moving on to the green, which is going to be his shoes, his sash belt, the patch on his hat and the band on his hat as well. I've speeded this up because my technique is always the same. It's always dark to light. We're using YG67, YG63 and YG61. And YG stands for yellow-green, so these are the yellow-green shades. I have all my Copic markers stored brush nib down. And you'll see my Chow ones, I've put a tiny dot on the end so I can quickly identify. I love the way the sketch ones already have the number on the end, but the Chow ones don't. I'm sure somebody is going to ask me these questions, so I thought I'd add them in. But it's a small sticker dot and I just put the number on the end so they're easy for me to grab hold of. And I also have them in colour sections in a box, and my dad made me a lovely MDF grid to go inside to stand them all up in. I've noticed that I missed a little section of his beard, which is under the sash, so I'm just going to go back in with my grey marker. And now I'm moving on to the wizard potion book that he's carrying, which is R89, R83 and R81. And I'm going to do exactly the same. I wanted to start with a really dark pink because I wanted it to look like a really old kind of sort of medieval Victorian times. I don't know what I was going for, but I was thinking that colour, a kind of old velvety wizardy book. So that's the combination that I chose. I also promise you in my next tutorial to improve my camera angle. I haven't done many tutorials. You can find them over on my YouTube channel, which is Suzanne Crafts. There will be a link at the end of the video. But mainly they are ink techniques and card design techniques. So the camera angle is completely different. I will try and improve my camera angle for you, maybe bringing my camera in at the side so you can actually get a close-up of the part I'm colouring at the time. I'm trying to zoom in for you as best I can when I've coloured in an area so you can see exactly what part I've gone over. So moving on to the opposite side of my book, and then I'm going to work down the spine as well, paying particular attention with my R89 into the spine and the rings around the book, leaving those lines really deep. So now I'm colouring the globe at the top of his walking stick, staff, I'm not sure. It's C3, C1 and C00. Instead of doing flicks this time, I'm just doing small blobs. I want it to remain really cloudy looking, like it's glass. So I'm not flicking there at all, and I'm not really blending together. I'm just doing small little blobs overlapping and next to each other. And I'm now going to colour the cloak that he's wearing, which is E37, E35, E33 and E31. I'm also going to do his hat as well. Now this is quite a large area, so I'm going to zoom in at some points and also speed it up quite a bit for you. When I'm working on the hat, I'm going from the corners and then from the top under the band that goes around his hat, blending into the middle, so we've got some really good shading. This set of pens is really good for kind of boot brown or wood grain as well, a really good set of browns. I'm adding some crease marks in the hat with my darkest pen. I'm really going over those to really put those in so it looks like the hat is old and a bit battered. He doesn't take good care of all his belongings. Please feel free to contact me. I'm sure there'll be some details below the video in the comments. You can contact Dr. Digi and I think he will put some links in so you can buy the digital image. Later on we'll also be using some of the Digi papers as well when I layer up the card for the final project. You can see how nicely all those browns blend together. There's no definite line in between any of the different shades or colours. And I always work the same way, even though I'm colouring a really tiny area, which is down by his foot, which is the side of his cloak. I still don't lay down a couple of colours so you get more realism into your colouring. And laying down all over the crease marks that are going to be in the bottom of his cloak. The cloak is the largest area that you're going to colour, and it's actually quite hard to blend all the colours in the middle, but it just takes a little bit more work. A little bit of pressure at the end with your lightest colour, blending over, pushing the ink, pulling the ink through. You actually use your lightest colour or the colour before to actually pull the ink into the middle so it all blends really well. And just laying down all my shading, all my creases before I start to blend those lines out. At some point you think to yourself in a large area, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to blend, the colours are too far apart, the lightest colour is way too off from the darkest shade, but it does. All you need to do is work it a bit more. You carry on pushing the colours. I turn my paper around a lot because I work from the edge to the middle. You can see now how all that has vanished and it's all blended together. So I'm moving on to my sleeves, and there's some really dark areas where you can see inside the bottom of his sleeve where his hand is, and I'm going to really darken those up, concentrating on my darkest colour in those areas. Don't add too much colour too soon because you can always go back in and add more and make it darker. So stand back, have a look, see where you are, and then continue. Now I'm adding the wood grain with E57, E53 and E51. I'm also laying in the ground area, which is W3, W0 and W00. You must lay some ground down under your images, whether it's an animal, a building, anything. Otherwise it appears that they're floating. So they need some ground to stand on. You can always use cool, warm greys. If they're standing in water, obviously you can use your blues, your lighter blues really well. But I use a lot of the W's. I think they give really good grounding under images. And I just don't do the flicking. I do similar to how I did earlier with the globe. I do little tiny circles and then just go over them starting with my W3 up close to the feet along his cloak and at the sides to give our shadow area, and then the W0 and the W00. There's not flicking and blending as such. It gives sort of a stony look to the image, so if it's standing on gravel or stones or something like that. W00 is great for blending things out, so if you've got some browns in there as well that he's standing on, you can blend them out and make them sort of mottled with your W00s. We're coming to the end of the tutorial of the Copic colouring part. I'm going to move on. I'm using some of the spell papers by Dr. Digi, and I'm going to layer those up also with a few of my own cutting dies as well that I've cut on the silhouette. Please feel free to leave any comments. We'd love to hear your feedback, and any suggestions for better camera angles for Copic colouring would be great. Thank you for watching this part. See you in part 2.